Thank you, Mr Deputy President. I rise on behalf of the Coalition in relation to the Crimes and Summary Offences Amendment Bill. I haven't had the benefit of listening to all that my learned colleague was proposing to say, but certainly entirely endorse everything that the Treasurer had so far indicated in relation to this bill. I think we stand united in condemning a lot of what we have seen over recent times, including outside this Parliament. And as we know, this bill responds in part to recent activity by pro-Nazi groups, and it does this by creating a new offence in the Crimes Act to criminalise publicly engaging in conduct that indicates support for Nazi ideology. And appropriately, the bill provides for heavier penalties where this conduct takes place on or near a Jewish place, such as a Jewish school, a synagogue, or the Jewish Museum. These provisions target real harms, and we strongly support these provisions. We note that the bill also seeks to repeal the 3-year sunset clause found in section 93Z AC. This seems premature and inappropriate. We have heard nothing from the government about the effectiveness or otherwise of 93ZAA. We have not seen what prosecutions have or have not been able to take place under 93ZAA. And we note that the SACA report into hate crimes, the very matters that are covered by 93ZAA, seems for reasons unknown to us to be kept as a closely guarded secret by the Attorney-General. We know that this report was received last year. We know that this is directly relevant to a consideration of whether or not the sunset clause in 93ZAC should be repealed. Yet, for some reason, this Parliament is not allowed to see, review and reflect on the findings of the Honourable Mr Justice Saka. So it is hard to support this without any cogent, researched facts that would allow us to support that. So we will be moving an amendment to retain the sunset clause. This legislation is appropriate, but in some ways is very confusing. This legislation, indeed the Minns Labor government as a whole, is quick to speak out against anti-Semitism, especially when it is being expressed by those associated with Nazi or neo-Nazi ideology. But then we come to the recent events at the Biennale and the frankly outrageous statements by DJ Haram praising terrorist suicide bombers as martyrs. Why was this not called out in exactly the same way? Certainly we have had the Minister for the Arts, the Honourable John Graham, calling on the Biennale to make sure that it is a place where all citizens, including Jewish Australians, feel welcome. Yet we know that 5 weeks before that performance by DJ Haram, 5 weeks, he received a dossier outlining all of the social cohesion risks in relation to performers at the Biennale. What steps did he take to make sure that that would not be called out? I acknowledge that interjection because the honourable member clearly misunderstands the difference between freedom of speech and freedom of yelling at other people. The whole concept of freedom of speech is that we can open our minds, we can engage in debate. Yet what happened at the Biennale was that debate was shut down. People were excluded. That's a false concept of freedom of speech. Any freedom of speech that shuts down expression, that...
As a point of order.
Mr Assistant President, The Honourable Cameron Murphy continues to interject on the Honourable Susan Carter while she's making some very salient points about the bill. I'd ask you to ask him to be silent during the contribution. Otherwise, I would invite you to call him to order.
I would invite all honourable members to please treat each other with respect, particularly those who are making a contribution to the debate.
We look forward to the Prevention of Anti-Semitism Bill, which we will be moving, which would prohibit such a use of taxpayers' money, not to provide for genuine freedom of expression, but to close debate down and to other people in our society who should be welcome everywhere. That bill would also require that in determining whether an alleged offender has committed an offence against Section 93Z or 93ZAA of the Crimes Act, where the other person is or one or more of the members of the group are Jewish or assumed by the alleged offender to be Jewish, the court would be required to have regard to the IRA definition of anti-Semitism and the examples provided as part of that definition. The opposition will be moving an amendment during the committee stage to add these provisions to the bill. We will say more about this during the committee stage. I note that the government referred this bill to the Labor-dominated Law and Safety Committee in the other place for inquiry and report, in particular on constitutional aspects of the bill. And given the government's batting average on constitutional challenges lately, this was a welcome referral. The committee reported on the 6th of February 2026. It recommended that, quote, anything that could further assist a court in determining the purpose of the bill would be helpful. In a court challenge, consideration of the purpose of a law is a necessary step in determining whether the law is reasonably appropriate and adapted to achieve its aim. The committee considers, therefore, that the bill could benefit from the addition of an express purpose clause setting out explicitly what harms the bill seeks to prevent. Such a clause could assist a court in determining the purpose of the bill and its legitimacy by clarifying the legislature's intention. An express purpose clause included in the text of the bill would also be afforded more weight by a court than a second reading speech, as it indicates the intention of the legislature as a whole, end quote. And I note the committee also proposed a cascading definition of Nazi symbols, swastika, other Nazi symbols, things closely resembling Nazi symbols, and a causative element for the Nazi symbols offence. Despite these very informed recommendations, which would improve the likelihood that this bill cannot be struck down for constitutional reasons, from a committee with significant Labor Party representation, why were these recommendations ignored by the Attorney-General? Why do we not see these recommendations reflected in this bill? If I was a conspiracy theorist, I think because the Attorney-General would be happy to have this bill struck down. It's performative. Look at us, look what we're doing, but don't expect it to actually work. We will move amendments to hopefully make sure that this bill works.
Ms.
Subject
Sue
to
Higginson.
amendments, the opposition supports this bill.
Ms. Sue